My name is Ima Ramos and I'm the curator of the Medieval to Modern South Asia collections here at the museum and the curator of this exhibition, Tantra Enlightenment to Revolution. The exhibition aims to demystify Tantra and challenge the stereotype that it's a hedonistic guide to sex. Above all, it presents a history of Tantra as a countercultural philosophy. Originating in 6th century India, Tantra has been linked to successive waves of revolutionary thought, from its early medieval transformation of Hinduism and Buddhism to the Indian fight for independence and the rise of 1960s counterculture in the West. Tantra is rooted in instructional sacred texts called tantras. They take their name from the Sanskrit word tan, meaning to weave or compose, and are often written as a dialogue between a god and a goddess. We open the exhibition with some of the earliest surviving tantras in the world, on loan from Cambridge University Library. The tantras taught active engagement with spiritual obstacles, such as desire, aversion, and fear, in order to ultimately transcend them. Tantric imagery is therefore unique in its inclusion of erotic and macabre symbolism. The first major section of the exhibition explores the rise of Tantra in medieval India. Power is absolutely central to Tantra. It presented a new worldview which saw all material reality as animated by Shakti, divine feminine power. This worldview inspired the dramatic rise of goddess worship in India. New tantric goddesses were introduced into the Hindu and Buddhist pantheons. What made them specifically tantric were their intertwining of destructive and maternal power, which challenged traditional models of womanhood as passive and docile. These temple sculptures represent the tantric goddess Chamunda. This one from 11th century central India shows her dancing ecstatically after her rampage against demons on the cosmic battlefield. She's a skeletal vision to behold, with a skull-like face and glaring eyes. Her nakedness is ornamented with a garland of heads. She carries a sword of wisdom with which she destroys not only demons, but also obstacles to enlightenment, such as a devotee's ego, their attachment to a false sense of self. The ego is symbolized by a corpse that turns to look up at her adoringly. A jackal picks at the corpse's heel, suggesting the nocturnal setting of a cremation ground, Chamunda's favorite haunt. This 10th century tantric goddess from Tamil Nadu represents a yogini. From a distance, her voluptuous nudity attracts the eye and invites the viewer to approach, but closer observation reveals the fearsome details of her fangs, angrily arched eyebrows, and earrings made from a dismembered hand and a cobra. Yoginis are described in some of the earliest tantric texts. Seductive yet dangerous, these goddesses could transform into women, birds, tigers, or jackals as the mood took them. This sculpture is part of a group that would have once been enshrined in a temple dedicated to the yoginis. Between the 10th and 13th centuries, royal patrons commissioned yogini temples across India. Rulers believed that yoginis could predict the future, protect their kingdoms against disease or enemy armies, and help them win new territories. This space evokes an imaginative and immersive recreation of one of the most famous yogini temples in India, which is located in Odisha and was built around the 10th century. We wanted to transport visitors to a time when devotion to these goddesses was at its height. Most yogini temples were circular and unique in their roofless design, perhaps in order to attract the yoginis from the sky into the sacred courtyard. Tantra's affirmation of the divine feminine informed the lives of real women. Tantric texts not only encouraged their worship as goddesses, but women themselves could play powerful roles as independent practitioners. We see this through the historical figure of Karaikal Amaya, who lived in Tamil Nadu in the 6th century. She became a follower of the god Shiva, one of the most important deities within Tantric philosophy and practice. She asked him to replace her beauty with an appearance which echoed that of a Tantric goddess. In this 13th century Chola bronze of her from the Metropolitan Museum, she's shown reciting one of her poems with a pair of cymbals. New techniques of Tantric yoga harness the body as the ultimate instrument for internalizing Shakti, or divine feminine power, by visualizing a goddess at the base of the spine, surrounded by chakras, or energy centers. Awakening this inner goddess through breath control became the ultimate goal of Tantric yoga. This cosmic vision of the body is what is being visualized in these paintings from the British Library and Wellcome Collection. The word yogini not only refers to the goddesses we saw earlier, but also to female practitioners of Tantra or yoga. In this beautifully detailed 18th century painting, a mortal yogini sits on a tiger skin outside her hut. Two women come seeking guidance and make an offering of flowers. Many Tantric texts describe women as superior gurus or teachers in their embodiment of Shakti. Rulers across India were attracted to Tantric masters as agents of power. This included the Mughal dynasty, who arrived from Central Asia in the 16th century, as well as the Islamic rulers of independent sultanates further south. They commissioned some of the earliest detailed representations of women as gurus, such as the ones on display here. This visionary depiction of the Tantric goddess Bhairavi from the Met was painted in the 1630s by Payag, a celebrated artist at the Mughal court. The setting is a cremation ground. The goddess sits cross-legged on a corpse, its head violently wrenched off. Blood red and cackling, she wears a skirt of skulls and has horns in the shape of spearheads. Her devotee here may be the god Shiva, or it might be a mortal yogi emulating him. Tantric yogis imitated Shiva's wild appearance and behavior in order to fully embody him. They meditated in cremation grounds to overcome obstacles to enlightenment, such as the fear of mortality. The rise of Tantra led to a new school of Tantric Buddhism known as Vajrayana, or the path of the thunderbolt, which had spread across Asia by the 8th century, with a particularly strong hold in Tibet. Instrumental in the transmission of Tantric teachings from India to the Himalayas were the Mahasiddhas, or great accomplished ones. They wear human bone ornaments in imitation of Tantric deities. This painting depicts the Mahasiddha Saraha in the center. He composed songs about the body as a channel to enlightenment. Jalandhara was one of the most famous Mahasiddhas. This bronze of him performing Tantric yoga from the Rubin Museum shows him balancing on a personification of his own ego, which he has transcended. One of the themes the exhibition explores is the role of sex and divine union in Tantra in order to confront some of the more prevalent stereotypes. In Tantric texts, gendered symbolism is often used to articulate the two qualities to be cultivated on the path towards enlightenment: wisdom and compassion. These are visualized as a goddess representing wisdom and a god representing compassion in sexual union, as we see with this Tibetan painting. The goal is to internalize their qualities by visualizing the deities uniting within the body through meditation. These are deities to be adored as well as emulated. The painting was probably a monastic commission and would have been used to support meditation. You'll notice the deities here are both wearing crowns of human skulls, and he's carrying a skull cup in one of his many hands. The representation, as well as the use of human remains in tantric practice, is a reminder of the impermanence of the body and the importance of overcoming attachment to the idea of a fixed self. In Tibet, practitioners often left their skulls and other bones after their death to a lama and to monasteries in order to gain spiritual merit in the next life. This part of the exhibition explores the role of human remains in Tantric Buddhist practice, which has been developed in consultation with members of the Tibetan community and scholars of Tibetan Buddhism. This Tibetan painting from the Rubin Museum represents the renowned female tantric master Machi Glabdron, who lived in the 11th century. She's most famous for popularizing the tantric practice known as Chö, meaning to cut, which involved the use of human remains used as instruments, like the ones shown here. It entailed the visualization of the dissection of one's own body, and by extension the ego, which is presented as an offering to divine spirits. The goal of the practice is to sever and dismember all ties to the idea of a fixed self. The sounds of a two-headed skull drum and a trumpet made from a human thigh bone invite the spirits to devour the body during this ritual. The role of human remains in Tantra is still misunderstood in the West. This goes back to the 19th century colonial period, when British officials encountered these instruments and associated them with black magic. This leads us to the next section of the exhibition, which explores the role of Tantra during British rule in India and how tantric goddesses were harnessed for their insurgent potential during the fight for Indian independence. This figure of the tantric goddess Kali dates to the late 19th century and was made in Bengal, which was an early centre of Tantra, as well as the nucleus of British rule at the time. A garland of severed heads hangs from her neck, corpses from her ears, and hands from her girdle. Her mouth is smeared with blood, and she sticks out her tongue as though thirsting for more. On the surface, she appears fierce, but she's approached as a mother figure. The heads represent the ego, which Kali helps her devotees to transcend. She's shown standing on her husband, the god Shiva. According to Tantric belief, existence results from the union between Shakti as creative force, embodied here by Kali, and Shiva as pure consciousness. The image of Kali striding over Shiva symbolizes the superiority of the female principle within Tantra. Kali was completely misunderstood by Christian missionaries and colonial officials who saw her as demonic. This became one of the most popular prints made by the Ravi Varma Press. It was reproduced in a Christian missionary text as a reflection of India's so-called depravity. Indian revolutionaries in Bengal harnessed Kali's radical potential, playing on British anxiety and paranoia. They reimagined her and other tantric goddesses as figureheads of resistance and symbols of an independent India rising up against the British. In 1917, this report was published detailing the anti-colonial activities of Bengali revolutionaries and their allegiance to Kali. The frontispiece featured this popular print of the goddess. In the report, Bipin Chandra Pal, a prominent activist, is quoted describing Kali as a symbol that could arouse the dormant energies of the nation and to lead it on to realize its highest destiny. In the final part of the exhibition, we explore how Tantra has been reimagined from the 20th century until today. Following the independence of India and Pakistan in 1947, artists forged modern national styles rooted in the pre-colonial art of the past. Many were inspired by the philosophical and countercultural elements of Tantra. Artists associated with the Neo-Tantra movement in the 1970s adopted tantric symbols and adapted them to speak to the visual language of global modernism. In this painting by Santosh, who was born in Kashmir, limbs emerge from an oval, egg-like shape to suggest a genderless figure seated in a cross-legged yoga pose known as the lotus posture. The head is replaced by an orange trident, the emblem of Shiva. In Britain and the US, Tantra had an important impact on the period's radical politics, where it was interpreted as a movement that could inspire anti-capitalist, ecological, and free love ideals. In the West, Tantra was reimagined as a cult of ecstasy that could challenge stifled attitudes to sexuality. This 1960s psychedelic poster by the London-based designers Hapshash and the Coloured Coat drew on tantric images of deities in union to communicate this idea. Today, Tantra is as alive as ever. Sects in India, including the Aghoris, reveal its enduring power. These images are from a photographic archive we're exhibiting for the first time, documenting different tantric communities. The practices of the Aghoris include smearing their bodies with the ash of burnt corpses from funerary pyres, as seen here, which is traditionally deemed polluting. For the Aghoris, transgressive practices are an expression of the tantric assertion that all is sacred, and there is no distinction between what is conventionally perceived as pure and impure, just as there is no distinction between the self and the divine. Tantra has gone on to influence modern feminist thought and artistic practice. Female artists have harnessed tantric goddesses through the bodies of real women, evoking them in a feminist guise. The exhibition ends with dramatic works of art, including this one. Bharti Kaur, born in London and now based in Delhi, creates sculptures made from casts of real women to produce dramatic urban goddesses. This figure blurs the boundaries between mortal and divine. It presents the self-decapitated goddess Chinnamasta with copper wires spurting from her neck like jets of blood. The title of this almost 3-meter-tall mixed media painting, Housewives with Steak Knives, challenges the stereotype of the submissive wife confined to the kitchen. It's by the Bengal-born British artist Shutapa Biswas. Here, the housewife as Kali wears a garland of heads that the artist describes as figureheads of authoritarian patriarchy. This exhibition offers new insights into a philosophy that has shaped lives and captured imaginations for more than a millennium. I hope you've enjoyed learning more about the fascinating history of tantric philosophy and its enduring impact on world culture, and that you will have the opportunity to visit the exhibition in person soon. On behalf of everyone at the museum, thank you for your ongoing support during this difficult time.